Picture this, right? You're just scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and you stop on this incredibly striking image.
Oh, yeah, the Milanese grandmother.
Yes, it's this glamorous, older Milanese grandmother, and she's draped in this classic, really heavy fur coat, just sitting at a sun-drenched cafe. She exudes this completely timeless, effortless luxury.
But the thing is, she's not real.
Exactly. She is entirely generated by a computer. And then, you keep scrolling, and maybe a few days later, you open up the August edition of Vogue.
Which is like the holy grail of fashion publishing.
Right. And there, right in a glossy Guess advertisement, is this pristine, totally flawless blonde model showing off a summer playsuit. And she is not real either.
It is, it's basically a digital mirage sitting right there on the pages of the most prestigious fashion magazine in the world, literally trying to sell you a very real, very physical product.
And that is the massive collision we're getting into today for this deep dive. We have gathered a really huge stack of sources for this.
Yeah, a lot of ground to cover.
We've got everything from on-the-ground reporting by the BBC, industry-defining newsletters from the Business of Fashion, and some really incisive strategy analyses on Substack. We are basically looking at everything from high-fashion runway controversies all the way down to the invisible code running everyday e-commerce.
Because right now, artificial intelligence and the fashion industry are in the middle of a high-speed crash. It's a defining moment, really, and everyone is just scrambling to figure out what the rules even are.
Our mission today is to figure out what happens when the dust actually settles. Like, is AI destroying the very concept of luxury and human beauty? Or is it simply, expanding the creative toolbox for a totally new generation of designers?
It's a huge question.
It is. Okay, let's unpack this. Whether you're someone who actively follows every single fashion week, or, someone who just buys what fits, this is absolutely going to change how you shop. And we're here to help you navigate it.
Yeah, it really impacts everyone.
So let's start at the very top of the food chain, right? High fashion. What actually happens when a luxury brand, which traditionally bases its entire identity on painstaking human craftsmanship, just starts hitting the generate button?
No, you get absolute chaos, to put it mildly. We saw this unfold in real time with Gucci.
Oh, the Instagram thing.
Exactly. Right before their new creative director, Sabato De Sarno, was set to present his highly anticipated first vision on the runway in Milan, Gucci's marketing took a very abrupt, very weird turn.
They just completely flooded their Instagram grid with AI-generated images. And there was zero context. I'm looking at the screenshots from our sources right now, and it is just bizarre.
It's so random.
It really is. There is this sports car that looks like it was ripped straight out of the video game Grand Theft Auto. Then there's a random majestic horse just standing on a beach.
And the satellite.
Right, a satellite floating in deep space. And, of course, that glamorous Milanese grandmother we mentioned earlier.
And, the internet's reaction was swift, and it was brutal. Critics immediately branded the whole thing as AI slop.
AI slop. That is rough.
It is. And the backlash in the comment sections was intense. People were saying things like, these are bleak days when a multi-billion-dollar house like Gucci can't just find a real human Milanese grandmother to wear an outfit.
Which is a totally fair point.
Right, and the outrage makes complete sense when you think about the actual mechanics of the industry. Because traditionally, luxury is all about taking your time. It's about sparing no expense, hiring the absolute best photographers, flying out to remote locations.
And AI, at least in the public consciousness, is the exact opposite of that. It's viewed as this cheap, fast shortcut.
Exactly. But according to one of our sources, which is a strategy analyst from a fashion tech newsletter called The Digital Runway, this whole campaign wasn't an accident. And it wasn't just a lazy intern either.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it was highly calculated rage bait. So Gucci's sales had actually been down 22% in the previous quarter. They were losing cultural relevance fast, and they desperately needed people talking about them right before that big Milan show.
Okay, wow. So they knew it would make people mad.
Yep. And the underlying logic of social media algorithms is that they just do not care if you're being praised or destroyed. They only care about engagement.
Right. Attention is attention.
Exactly. By dropping these super confusing AI images, they essentially hacked the algorithm. By the time the actual human models walked down that physical runway, the entire internet had already spent 4 days just screaming about Gucci.
Which is, I mean, that is a remarkably effective marketing tactic, even if it is incredibly cynical. Controversy definitely breeds visibility.
It does. However, the analyst did point out where Gucci's execution ultimately missed the mark. They generated all this digital noise, but they failed to anchor it to the physical world or to the actual clothes.
What do you mean by anchor it?
Well, like, if you're going to generate a Grand Theft Auto-style sports car, you need a mechanism to make that relevant. Like, maybe tying it to a digital drop in Roblox where users can actually buy the clothes for their avatars.
Oh, I see.
Right, or if you show a Milanese grandmother at a cafe, you should build a physical, temporary pop-up cafe right there in Milan for your runway guests.
Right.
Because they treated the digital and physical worlds as two entirely separate universes, the AI just felt like a cheap gimmick, rather than a real extension of the brand's universe.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it's not just Gucci experimenting with this strange new world either.
Yep.
Prada jumped into the deep end too, with their Spring/Summer 2026 campaign.
The bird people?
Yes, they mixed real Hollywood actors like Nicholas Hoult with these giant, incredibly hairy AI-rendered bird humanoids. And these were created by a contemporary artist named Jordan Wolfson.
What's fascinating here is the historical parallel that Wolfson actually draws to defend this whole thing. He compares generative AI to the invention of the electronic synthesizer in music.
Okay, how so?
Well, when synthesizers first hit the scene, musical purists were terrified. They genuinely thought it would destroy real music because you were just pushing a button instead of, physically plucking a string or blowing into an instrument.
Right, the whole authenticity argument.
Exactly. And going back even further, when the camera was invented, people thought photography was an existential threat to painting. Wolfson, alongside some pioneering fashion image makers like Nick Knight, they argue that AI is simply a new medium. It's just a complex new instrument that expands our visual vocabulary rather than completely replacing the human author.
Okay, I hear that defense. I really do, but I have to push back hard on that. Is this really like inventing the synthesizer, or is it just like putting a microwave dinner on fine china?
That's a very vivid way to put it.
Well, think about it. If luxury is fundamentally about human touch, exclusivity, and the painstaking effort of a master artisan, doesn't just typing a text prompt into a computer completely undermine the brand's entire value proposition?
It definitely challenges it.
When Prada or Gucci uses AI, even if they dress it up as this high conceptual art, aren't they just eroding the very thing that justifies charging $3,000 for a handbag?
That is basically the defining philosophical crisis of the industry right now. To answer your analogy, the luxury houses would probably argue that the fine china isn't just the physical labor anymore, it's the creative vision itself.
So the idea is what you're paying for.
Right. They view the AI not as a microwave dinner, but as this massive conceptual sketchpad. But, you are entirely right to point out the risk there. The danger is massive brand dilution. If the consumer perceives that the brand is cutting corners on the imagery that sells the dream, they will naturally just assume the brand is also cutting corners on the stitching of the handbag itself.
Exactly. And brands actually quickly realized that abstract, weird AI art like Prada's giant bird creatures was, well, it was actively alienating buyers.
Yeah, people didn't really want to look at that.
No. So the industry pivoted. They swung to the exact opposite extreme. They started trying to simulate absolute photorealistic human perfection. Which brings us to our next major shift in the deep dive. The conversation moves from AI as a high-art runway stunt to a tool attempting to create the perfect mannequin.
And that is a huge shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because when you stop generating weird birds and start generating fake women, the stakes change entirely.
Right.
We aren't just talking about brand reputation anymore. We're talking about societal harm.
Right. We enter what roboticists call the uncanny valley.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah, for those unfamiliar, the uncanny valley is that deeply unsettling psychological phenomenon where something looks almost perfectly human, but there's just a tiny, microscopic imperfection. Maybe the eyes are slightly too glassy or the skin totally lacks pores, and it just makes your brain scream, "That's a machine!"
It gives you that creepy feeling.
Exactly. And brands are currently pouring millions of dollars into trying to cross that valley to make digital models completely indistinguishable from reality.
Which brings us back to that Guess advert in the August edition of Vogue.
Yeah.
This really feels like the moment the dam broke for this tech. Guess featured an AI-generated model named Seraphine Valora.
Right.
And she is this flawless, blonde, digital creation, but she's wearing a real striped maxi dress from their actual summer collection. And honestly, unless you happen to catch this tiny, easily missed disclaimer tucked way down in the corner, you would have zero idea she wasn't a living, breathing person.
Yeah, she was actually created by two 25-year-old founders of a tech company, which is also confusingly named Serafine Valora.
Oh, so the company and the model have the same name.
Yes. And what's really crucial to understand here is the sheer mechanics of how this image actually came to be. It wasn't just a matter of someone typing pretty blonde woman in a dress into a generator and calling it a day.
Right.
The founders actually revealed that the process of making this single static image took a full month, and they charged clients in the low six figures for this service.
Wait, let me just pause you right there. A full month? Why on earth does it take 30 days to create one fake photo if AI is supposed to be this instantaneous magic bullet?
Because, honestly, current AI is actually terrible at physical logic.
What does that mean, physical logic?
It means the machine doesn't really understand gravity. It doesn't know how silk naturally drapes over a human collarbone or how light is supposed to reflect off a specific weave of cotton. So the initial generation might give you a woman with six fingers or a shadow that's pointing in completely the wrong direction.
Oh yeah, the AI hands are always a mess.
Always. So the founders actually had to use massive teams of human digital artists to manually scrub the image. They had to digitally stitch the actual guest striped dress onto this fake AI body, fix all the anatomical glitches by hand, and adjust the lighting layer by layer.
Wow.
It is essentially digital sweatshop labor, but it's completely masked as technological magic. And the founders claim this is supplementary, that they aren't trying to replace real models, but...
But come on. This raises an important question, though, especially regarding transparency. Because right now, there are no strict legal requirements for clear AI labeling in print. Like we said, that Guess ad just had a tiny disclaimer.
Barely visible.
Right. So what does this all mean? We have a situation where Guess is paying low six figures and waiting an entire month for a single fake image. How is this the massive cost-cutting shortcut everyone claims it is?
It's not. Not yet, anyway.
It sounds to me like the industry is paying a massive premium purely for the novelty of using AI rather than any actual efficiency. And the real cost is actually paid by you, the listener. Because when you are flipping through a magazine now, you have absolutely no idea if what you are looking at is real. It completely shatters that baseline of trust between the brand and the consumer.
It really does. And that loss of trust is massively compounded by the societal impact. The pushback from the actual modeling industry was incredibly fierce.
I bet.
Yeah. Plus-size model Felicity Hayward was quoted in our sources calling the Guess campaign lazy and cheap. She basically called it a kick in the teeth.
Wow. A kick in the teeth.
Yeah, and she highlighted the underlying mechanism of this whole trend, which is that it effectively undoes a solid decade of hard-fought progress for diversity in fashion. Because think about it, if a brand can just engineer a digitally flawless, perfectly symmetrical woman on a computer, the financial incentive to go through the actual effort of casting diverse, real bodies just evaporates.
And the sources from eating disorder charities, like Beat, they raised a really sobering point here, too. We already have a societal crisis with heavily photoshopped images of real people.
Absolutely.
But an AI model is literally born flawless. It has no human inconsistencies to even Photoshop out. And the algorithms generating these faces, they carry massive inherent biases based on how they were trained by humans in the first place.
Yeah, and that was illustrated perfectly in a recent data study conducted by Dove.
Oh, I read about this in the sources.
It's fascinating. They asked several popular AI image generators to simply create the most beautiful woman in the world, just a basic prompt. But the underlying mechanics of these algorithms dictate that they pull from the most dominant imagery on the internet.
Right, whatever there's most does.
Exactly. Consequently, the AI continually churned out virtually identical images. Young, hyper-thin white women with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Every single time.
Every time. Because the bias isn't born inside the machine itself. It's a mirror. It's reflecting the data the machine was fed by humans. If the industry just allows algorithms to default to their baseline, the definition of beauty narrows to the most stereotypical, damaging standards imaginable.
It's scary. And it forces every brand to make a definitive choice about where they stand on this. And while Guess is clearly leaning heavily into the artificial, brands like Aerie are running in the exact opposite direction.
They are making a huge statement.
They really are. Aerie just launched their 100% Aerie Real pledge, where they are formally, publicly banning AI-generated bodies from all of their marketing.
And they executed that campaign brilliantly by casting Pamela Anderson,
Yes.
she has recently been very, very vocal about going makeup-free and completely rejecting artificial beauty standards. So the commercial literally opens with this sleek AI interface trying to generate a model, and then the screen physically shatters, revealing a chaotic, messy, real-life photo shoot. And Pamela Anderson looks dead into the camera and says, "You can't prompt this."
It is such a good line. And Aerie's chief marketing officer, Stacey McCormick, she noted something really profound in one of our strategy sources.
Yeah,
She said that in a world where everything is generated, real becomes rare.
that's a great way to frame it.
Right.
Right.
Aerie is making human authenticity their unique selling proposition. They're actively betting that when you are scrolling on your phone, trying to decide whether to buy a sweater, knowing definitively that the garment and the body wearing it are real is going to be a massive competitive advantage.
It's the ultimate counter movement to all this AI slop. But, here is the fascinating twist in all of this. While the internet is screaming about fake faces in Vogue and we're all debating the ethics of digital beauty, there is a completely different, totally quiet revolution happening behind the scenes.
Yes, the invisible stuff.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, AI is successfully overhauling the invisible infrastructure of how we actually buy our clothes.
This is honestly my favorite part of the research. The most successful applications of AI in fashion right now, they aren't the flashy marketing stunts or the creepy birds. They are the highly utilitarian tools operating entirely on the back end of e-commerce sites. Take Zara, for example.
Zara is a perfect example.
Zara is using AI in a way that is incredibly smart, highly functional, and completely invisible to you, the average shopper.
Yeah, because instead of replacing human models with completely fake digital creations, Zara is actually taking high-resolution photographs of real human models wearing just a base layer of clothing.
Like a plain t-shirt and shorts or something.
Exactly. And then they use AI to re-render different garments onto those existing photographs. So rather than flying an entire crew out to shoot a model wearing 50 different sweaters over 3 days, they just shoot the model once.
It saves so much time.
It does. The AI then digitally swaps the garments, maps the new fabric perfectly to the model's actual body shape, and seamlessly adjusts the lighting.
And according to Inditex, which is Zara's parent company, this cuts their whole catalog production timeline down from weeks to mere days.
Which is a huge financial win.
Massive. But here's where it gets really interesting. Zara managed to implement this massive technological shift without angering the labor unions at all.
Which is rare these days.
Very rare. And how do they do it? By strictly adhering to the new European Union AI Act.
Right. And for context for everyone listening, the EU AI Act includes some strict new regulations regarding transparency and digital manipulation. And what Zara is doing to comply is honestly fascinating.
Tell them about the consent part.
Yeah, they literally require the real human models to give explicit written consent for their physical likeness to be digitally altered. But more importantly, they actually pay those models standard day rates for the digital usage.
Wow.
Yeah, just as if the model were physically standing in the studio all day trying on those 50 sweaters. It's really a functional blueprint for how to use this technology efficiently while still totally respecting human labor.
It's practical, it solves a real logistical problem, and it keeps humans financially in the loop. And this kind of functional AI extends way beyond just generating imagery, right? It's
Yeah.
completely changing how we search for clothes online. Think about the online retailer Revolve.
Oh, their new search is wild.
Our sources highlight how Revolve recently overhauled their entire site search using proprietary AI, and the mechanics of how it works are just mind-blowing.
Because traditionally, search bars on retail websites are, well, they're incredibly dumb.
They really are.
They rely entirely on exact keyword matching. So if you type the word sequin into a search bar, the system literally just scans the product descriptions for that exact word, sequin. And if the copywriter just happened to forget to include that word on a perfectly sparkly dress, you will just never see it.
But with Revolve's new AI, they're using what's called semantic search. This means the AI actually understands the concepts and the underlying intent behind human language.
It's reading between the lines.
Exactly. If you search for party dress, the AI knows you aren't just looking for the literal word party. It understands the context. That a party dress usually means short hems, metallic fabrics, or really bold colors.
It acts like an intelligent personal shopper.
Right. It can pull up a silver mini dress even if the item description just says evening wear. And the result of solving that specific consumer friction, Revolve saw their conversion rates, meaning the percentage of people who actually follow through and buy the clothes, jump by double digits.
That is massive for retail. And it succeeds precisely because it enhances the human experience of shopping rather than trying to completely override it.
Exactly.
But of course, the tech industry is famous for overplaying its hand. And we saw a spectacular example of this when OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, tried to reinvent the checkout process.
Oh my gosh, this was such a massive failure.
Mm-hmm.
So OpenAI rolled out this feature where you could buy physical products directly inside the ChatGPT window for partner brands on platforms like Shopify.
The idea was to eliminate the website entirely.
Right. The idea was that you would never have to leave the chat interface. You just tell the bot, hey, I want a black t-shirt, and it literally just buys it for you.
And they quietly rolled that feature back after just 6 months because absolutely nobody was using it.
Shocker.
Right. Shoppers were actively rebelling against it. They were clicking links to leave the chatbot so they could go to the actual website instead.
It's so obvious why it failed, too. Think about how you actually shop online. Would you trust a text-based chatbot to buy your jeans without seeing a detailed sizing chart?
No way.
Right, without being able to, zoom in on the fabric texture. It's literally like an overeager salesperson running up to you in a department store, grabbing a pair of pants off the rack, and trying to ring you up before you've even checked the price tag or stepped into a fitting room.
That analogy is perfect. When you strip away the retailer's dedicated website, you lose all the material details that give consumers confidence to buy. It was a classic case of Silicon Valley trying to solve a problem that consumers didn't actually have.
They prioritized neat engineering over the messy, visual, human reality of shopping.
Exactly. However, the financial incentives in retail are simply too massive for tech giants to just walk away entirely. Our sources note that Google is currently trying to fix this exact issue by building what are called universal commerce protocols.
And just to decode that jargon for a second, universal commerce protocols are essentially just a set of standardized digital rules. It's code that allows an AI chatbot to securely talk to a store's inventory system without breaking the visual experience for the user.
Right, so it bridges the gap.
Yeah. So in the future, the bot can securely pull your size, show you a reliable high-res image, and process your credit card smoothly, basically bridging the gap between a simple chat interface and a traditional storefront.
And exactly how that plays out is still highly experimental. But the overarching lesson from Zara and Revolve, especially when you compare it to the ChatGPT failure, is incredibly clear.
What's the lesson?
AI only works in retail when it respects the consumer's fundamental need for context, utility, and a seamless, trustworthy experience. If the tech tries to hide information or rush the buyer, it just fails.
Which really brings us full circle on this massive topic. We've been on quite a journey today through all these sources. We started at the top with Gucci, who used AI as chaotic rage bait marketing just to hack the algorithm and get eyes on their brand.
Yeah.
Then we saw Guess treat AI as this high-priced novelty, crossing the uncanny valley to create a flawless fake model that actively threatens decades of progress in diverse beauty standards.
While Aerie did the exact opposite.
Right, we watched Aerie draw a hard line in the sand, using human authenticity and, visible pores as a literal point of rebellion. And finally, we looked under the hood at how Zara and Revolve are quietly using AI as a hyper-efficient tool to revolutionize the invisible fabric of e-commerce.
It is a landscape defined by absolute extremes right now, but the common denominator in all of these vastly different strategies, whether a brand enthusiastically embraces AI or strictly bans it from their headquarters, is you, the consumer.
And that is absolutely the most important takeaway here. You are the ultimate quality control. Every single algorithm being trained, every fake model being rendered over a month, every new semantic search bar being coded, it's all designed specifically to earn your trust and ultimately open your wallet.
They need you to buy it.
Exactly. You get to decide what the future of fashion looks like entirely by where you choose to spend your money.
And as we navigate this very strange new reality, I do want to leave you with one final, broader thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We are entering an era where artificial intelligence can generate absolutely flawless, perfectly symmetrical human models and totally error-free clothing designs on demand. When absolute digital perfection becomes cheap, common, and infinitely available, will human flaws, a slight asymmetry in a face, the visible, slightly uneven stitching of a hand-sewn garment, or stray hair caught in the wind, will those eventually become the ultimate, highly priced status symbol of true luxury?
Oh, wow. Now that is something to think about. When perfection is free, imperfection becomes priceless. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into our sources today. The next time you are scrolling your feed or flipping through a glossy magazine and you see a glamorous Milanese grandmother or a flawless blonde model, take a second, look a little closer, and ask yourself what it is they are really trying to sell you. We'll see you next time.